Ah! Now, I think most of us can agree that the DJI Neo is a fun little drone. Lots of people seem to like it, and it's a great accessible drone for the hobby. But one thing that is common from a lot of feedback is that the video from it is less than great. So today we're going to take these Freewell filters and we're going to see if these filters can make it any better. We're going to try auto mode and then we're going to try manual mode to see what these filters can actually do. And I've also found another use for these filters, which might be quite surprising, but a bit more on that later in the video. Now, I've been flying drones and talking about it on YouTube for a couple of years now. And one thing you always notice when a new drone comes out, there's this rash of other accessories which soon follow, like this one. But along with that, Freewell always bring out the inevitable ND filters, or neutral density filters. I prefer to think of it as nearly dark filters. After that, you get the rash of YouTubers then saying, Freewell gave me these filters to try out, no money changed hands, and they didn't tell me what to say in the video or ask to see the video before I published it. And yeah, that is what happened with me. But I'd have probably bought them anyway to try them out. So to start off with the auto settings, we're going to use a boomerang. Rather than using a circle that just goes round, we'll have some movement in there as well, going out and back in again. I'll do each of them quickly in turn. I might speed it up a little bit so you can judge for yourself whether these filters make any difference. There's a slight breeze today, it's not too bad. This is a 20-metre boomerang, and I will speed this up. We don't want to bore people to death with it just going round and round. I'm going to need to move around a little bit because we want to see the difference between no filter and then the different ND filters. You see, what the ND filters do is restrict the light coming into the lens of the DJI Neo, which means that the shutter speed should slow down a bit, which gives more natural movement. So that's finished that one. So I'll show you some video of the unboxing. I mean, unboxings are all very well, but at the end of the day, what you want to see is this little drone flying around. But in the box, you get various different bits and pieces. You get a little sticky metallic thing which goes on the front of the drone, on the lens, and then these filters magnetize to it. Also in the box, you get instructions, you get some stickers, and the actual box itself is really good for traveling around with. It's got a nice magnetic clasp to it, which keeps it shut in your camera bag. Right, boomerang with the ND8 on. And actually fitting the filters is a doddle. I don't normally like sticking stuff on my drones, but this seems okay. And they give you a couple of those little sticky metallic things, just in case you lose one of them. I've found another use for one, which we'll come on to later. ND16. Sod off. Most YouTubers, including myself, at some stage have said, what are ND filters for? Well, if you think about it, they're like sunglasses for your drone. There, I've said it. Mark that off your bingo card. Oh, and I just want to say thank you to all the people that have subscribed so far. If you do like this sort of thing, please do hit like. It really does help the video out and the channel. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe and notifications. Thanks very much. ND32 testing now. One of the major differences between the DJI Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Neo, besides the size, is the fact that the DJI Mini 4 Pro has got an f1.7 aperture, which lets in lots of light and is great because it's great in low light and pulls in a load of detail to the sensor. The DJI Neo has an f2.8, so there's less light coming in. That's why for the Mini 4 Pro, the Air 3, all of those drones, ND filters tend to go up to about 64, sometimes 1,000, whereas in these packs from Freewell, it just goes up to 32, because there's already a restriction on the light that's coming in. So those are the standard filters. Now, we also have a set of equivalent polarizing filters. A polarizing filter uses some sorts of sciencey sort of stuff to remove reflections or excessive reflections from the picture. Also, it can boost the saturation of the sky and of the grass, but only at certain angles. So if you see here, I've got the DJI Neo. I can see my phone just down there. If I turn the filter around, you can see there that's changing the saturation of the sky in the screenshot. Bye. Now, it was a bit puzzling to me why they did a polarized filter on a drone which is going to be moving around, and just like in this shot, it's changing its angle to the light source. The polarizing effect only really works when you're 90 degrees to the light source. So if you're facing into the light source or into the sun or directly away from the sun, there isn't any polarizing effect. But we'll see how this does. ND16 polarized. Off you go. Obviously, I can't see at the moment what this footage is really looking like. I mean, on the phone, that does look quite cool. Hello. We'll have another demonstration of... Oh, getting a bit windy. We'll have another demonstration of motion blur at some point when I show you my little secret.
That was a tidy tease.
I'm just turning this filter so that the polarization looks similar with each of the shots. Pointless when it's going around in a circle. It just changes the hue of the sky when it's going around. But if you're doing a cinematic shot and just going in a straight line, then it's worth getting that set at that point. Okay, just move around a little bit. It's getting warm now. That's going to mess with the continuity, isn't it? Hello! Now, one thing that might worry people is about these filters being magnetic. If you have a crash, yeah, it might come off, and you'll be scrabbling around on the ground like Velma out of Scooby-Doo trying to find the glasses in every episode.
He knows I can't see without my glasses.
But they aren't going to fall off in flight. I have kind of killed a few bugs, I think. That was a really evil laugh. Don't mean to kill the bugs, but, you know, they get in the props. I've got my RC2, so I'm going to connect that to the DJI Neo. And we're just going to go over there to do a little trench run. We can demonstrate a bit more about motion blur there. You may have noticed that the time of day has changed a bit. That's because the bit that I'm about to film I'd already filmed, or thought I had, until I got my equipment back to my editor, at which point he had some rather harsh words to say to me. So let's start again. And I have checked. I'm recording this time. Because we're able to change some of the camera settings using the RC controller or the RCN3 or 2, I'm just going to go into that setting now. So on camera, we go down to style and sharpness. Everyone is saying use -2. I'm not going to argue with them. And on noise reduction, let's just bring that down to -1. It just makes the picture less contrasty. So we've already got a better baseline than using auto settings. One of the things that ND Filters enables you to do is to lower your shutter speed. I film at 30 frames per second. So using the 180-degree shutter rule, I should have a shutter speed of 1/60, so basically double. You can probably see from my screen recording here, I'm just way overexposed. There's very little point in me flying without a ND filter on, so we're not even going to fly in normal mode. So how are we looking with an ND8? So that's brought the exposure down a fair bit. We've got less zebras all over my screen. Stop pointing you at my belly. We'll fly the same route quickly as we can. And in as straight a line as possible. Okay, let's come back around. On to ND16. This looks like this could be about the sweet spot for today's conditions. This is looking a lot better. We've got a few overexposed bits in the clouds, but really not too bad at all. I'm actually quite liking these. Here we go. Whoa, that was close. So that was an ND16, and my exposure settings are still set down to the absolute lowest it can go. So onto the ND32. We should be at the point where we can adjust our exposure values. I'm so paranoid about dropping these in the grass. That is actually looking a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to click on our exposure values until we start getting a few. There's a few zebras there in the clouds. Let's bring that down so we get minimal zebras. We'll have tons of zebras there because that's facing into the sun. It is always harder coming back when you're in sport mode. Ah! I love it. So, that's the ND32. Now we'll go on to the polarized filters. So now that we're going to the ND8 polarized, bring the exposure setting down slightly so you get fewer zebras. That's as far down as I can take it without changing my shutter speed. ND8 polarized. It's a slightly smoother flight. Perhaps after doing this a couple of dozen times, I'm getting used to it. You ended up in that bush earlier, didn't you? Do you like a bit of bush?
No. No.
ND16 polarized. There we go. And again, ND32, I think we'll probably have to adjust the exposure values back up. Slight zebras there, quite a lot over there because that's facing into the sun. ND32 polarized. Should be seeing some of the saturation effect that the polarizing gives, at least at certain angles. So from what I've seen of this footage already, certainly changing those style values, so the sharpness down to -2 and the noise down to -1 really does help out. But actually, I'm very surprised at how well these filters do. I wasn't expecting there to be a huge amount of difference, but it really does seem to make a lot of difference. Haven't really had a chance to review the auto footage yet, but certainly some of the footage that I looked at after I'd cocked up looked a lot better than just without a lens and just on auto settings. If you are on an incredibly bright day, so have snow or are in the desert with white sand, you can actually stack these filters on top of each other. So if ND32 isn't cutting it for you, then you can just about get away with putting an ND8 on top of an ND32 to just take off that brightness. It's unlikely you'll need to do it, but they do magnetize to each other and the gimbal can actually hold both. So just a tip there. Now, one of my favorite cameras to film these videos with is the DJI Pocket 3. And I don't have any ND filters for it. But guess what I've done? I've stuck that little metal thing all the way around it. So if you can see here, I've stuck the little sticky metally bit on. That's a very technical term. And so now I can stick on an ND32 onto there. This is me waving at you without any ND filter on. So hopefully you should be able to see that it looks like I've got about 15 fingers just in one hand. Now I'm going to pop the ND32 filter on. And now you should be seeing a good deal of motion blur because the shutter speed will have slowed down on the camera to compensate for the restriction in the light. And I'm chuffed to bits that these fit on my Pocket 3 as well as on the DJI Neo. These filters are actually very reasonably priced. So if you want to pick some up, please use my affiliate links below. They don't cost any more to you, but it does help to support the channel. So thanks to Freewell for sending these along, and bye.